happened in the past, and what is going to happen today and next section. So our first section, we focus on the overview and the structure of the cast, and we provide some sample questions for our audience to think about. And second section, we focus on the accessibility resources for all students who get student ready. And today we're going to focus on the science tests in instructions and collect student data to analyze data to inform the future teaching. And next section, we'll focus on how to design your own CAS assessment in your teaching. Here's our agenda. We're going to be very briefly recap the first two sections, and we will focus on what is a performance test, and then we will unpack an example. Particularly, we will use the 5E model to explain how we can use performance tasks to design our instruction and also to guide students in their learning. Then we will share some resources that you can find many of those example similar performance tasks for your teaching. And we'll talk about next step. And if you have any questions, feel free to state at the end of the section. So for the previous sections, we talk about how the test has been designed in a way that you cannot teach to the test, unfortunately. So the picture here shows an possible example that can be a phenomenon that students are not familiar with, but they have to utilize the skills they learn to answer this question. For example, how might the butternut's ears help it survive, grow, or reproduce? So for these questions, it's not a real question, but these communicate the spirit of how the writers that they are going to write those test questions. Another good thing about the test is that even though they are not some of those familiar phenomena that students have been seen before, but there are always ways that for teachers to prepare for the students. The reason why is that because for 3D learning, 2D, the other two are SEP, CCC, Science and Engineering Practice, and cross-cutting concepts. Both of them, they will be 2/3 of the test. So we can prepare students for SEP and CCC, so students are ready for those skills that they can still do well in those CAS test questions. We have assigned homework. I don't know how many of you have done that homework in the past sections. We share how you can access training tests and practice tests. Those tests are very good tools that students and instructors can use to be familiar with the interface and the tools that CAST have. And we suggest you to look at those tests and use those with your students. So we wanted to have you to practice on or give your student practice on those tools. And we would like you to think about how might you support students throughout the year to be prepared for the test. Hopefully you have tried it, and then we'll give you a minute also to think about it and type in the chat. We can see your thoughts.
So just to comment on what Lee is saying here. So as we said, you can't really teach the test. You don't know what the questions are going to be, but we know, what the questions are like. And so how do we get our students ready for that? What are some things we can do during the school year to get them ready? And this is, of course, what we're talking about. We wanted you to do some brainstorming first to kick it off. So go ahead and what are some things that you do to help get your students ready for the cast? Thanks, Donita.
Definitely design and implement activity that incorporate all the 3D learning. So students are familiar with those type of assessment. And give them questions similar. Yeah, definitely those are very good strategies. So also think about instructions, right? That's something we're going to focus on later on. How do you align your instruction with those type of questions? high-level questions, of course, definitely address the gap.
That rigor, nice.
Use the intern view. That's Monsara, our team. Great. Yeah, different exposure to different styles of the question. Definitely very good one. All right. So keep thinking about this. We are going to move on because of time, and keep thinking, put in the chat. We will come back to this later if we have more time. So I believe this one goes to you, Brian.
Yeah, I'm taking over on this one. Just to sort of set up what we're going to do here, we want to talk a little bit about what we mean by performance tests and formative assessment, and then we're going to do kind of a deep dive into one of the performance tasks. So yeah, thank you. So here's an example of a performance task. This example of the hydrogen cell car. You can see where they're describing the phenomena, and there's a diagram there. And we don't see the questions yet, but you can kind of imagine what they're going to ask here. So this is the sort of thing that we mean by a performance assessment, because it involves some learning that the students are doing. It's not something that they just have memorized or they're just ready to answer right away, but they need to process it. And so they're gonna need to solve real world problems and apply some of that higher order and thinking skills on there. Let's go on to the next one there. And I'm sure, if you've been, at this point in the workshops, you've heard about some of the performance assessments that are out there, and you're also probably familiar with the idea of formative assessment. This is, of course, where we're assessing at the same time that we're teaching important topics. It's a deliberate process used by teachers and students during instruction that provides actionable feedback used to adjust ongoing teaching and learning strategies and improve students' attainment of curricular learning targets. So hopefully that's something that sounds familiar to everybody. So this is what we're arguing is the way that we want to prepare our students is by having a number of cycles of this sort of formative assessment, so that when they come to things like performance tasks on the cast, that this is the type of process that they've done before. And so we're gonna and the formative assessments follow much like a regular lesson, and so we can talk about that in terms of the 5E instructional model. Go to the next slide. Yeah, thanks. I'm sure you're all familiar with this. So a performance task that goes through the 5Es: engage, explore, explain, elaborate, and evaluate, that is going to sort of help the students have that sort of process in mind and be able to approach any type of problem that they're going to get on the cast by involving these steps. And so we're going to go take a look at one of the, I think it's a grade 6 assessment, and Lee's going to sort of lead us through this part.
So I'm gonna be unpacked one of the example of the performance test. We will use the example to talk about how we can align our 5E model to this performance task. So if you want to see the detail, this is actually an example from LACOE. They have a very detailed version of this example. You can find the links in the on the Canvas. And then there's like a PDF, 30 pages of the detailed guidance you can use actually for your class if you are 6th grade teacher. And so the learning goal of these performance tests is student will have an understanding of thermal energy transferred, insulator, and conductors. And I'm gonna give you a minute to read for these questions, and so that we'll come back and then think about what SEP these actually involved, CCC, and we'll have you to do some reflection afterwards. Just keep that thoughts in mind. Okay, I hope you finish. So as you can see, this is a real world problem. That student could be relatable. All the sixth grade students obviously like popsicles, and they have to think about this question, how they can protect the popsicle to be still not melted and then to be still frozen to use their knowledge. So this is a performance task we want students to complete. And now we want you to type in the chat. Hopefully you already think about this. What is the scientific phenomenon involved? What CCC does this activity involved? And what SEPs are needed to answer this question? We'll give you a minute and can go back to this again. You can think about it and then type in the chat. What is the phenomenon? What CCC is needed? What SEP are involved
There's
in?
not necessarily a right answer to that.
Yeah, definitely. It can be multiple, right? It can be different angles of thinking. Okay, CCC, energy and matter, great. Yeah,
Definitely.
definitely that's a very relevant one, right? John says that the transfer of energy can be tracked as energy flows through a design or nature system. Definitely. How about others or any SEP coming to your mind? So students have to use their knowledge about thermal energy transfer to design a lunchbox that can keep the popsicle frozen. SEP, apply scientific planning and then carrying out investigation. Yeah, definitely. That's a relevant one. And there's a very long one also.
I think those are actually the same one, right? Isn't that the same
Mm.
SCP? It's the science side and the engineering
Yeah,
side.
design. Yeah, definitely. This is also engineering practice, a design a solution, right? So let's move on.
I would say stability and change is my CCC for this,
And I think system models too.
but certainly energy for sure and systems.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So definitely, yeah, it can be used as to engage students in different SCP and CCCs. All right, so this is another question to think about. What barriers do you anticipate that your student would encounter accessing these texts? Right? Obviously, not all students have the same background, same experience. So what are the barriers that could be for students to answer or to understand these tasks?
May I share out loud?
Yeah,
Yes,
go ahead, Michael.
go ahead.
So I got to participate in a CAS data review this summer with
Mhm.
the test makers, and we discussed how what I'm allowed to talk about is how difficult the students um, how difficult the task is for the students to understand the question, but
Mhm.
also to keep focused after 30 minutes, 40 minutes of testing. Like that meant that intellectual stamina needs to
Mhm.
be longer, more enduring, and also they might have the content knowledge, but if they misunderstand the question just a little bit, now they're setting themselves up for failure. So the test taking skills are essential.
Mhm. Yeah, I agree. Definitely, if the will be multi steps that guiding the student to think about, gradually for the concept and then, eventually lead to the design, right? So it's a very complicated question and it requires very much higher order thinking. It is not that simple to design a lunchbox, right? So definitely, thank you for sharing that. Someone type in the chat. Many of the students lack reading skills. That's true too, especially English learner, right? For me, English is not my language as a first language. I have to highlight, underline things, circle things still now, like to make sure that I know what is the main thing I have to focus on? It's not just like this long sentence in front of me. So, maybe some strategies that needed to be teaching them how to actually understand the prompt, especially when the questions became very complicated. And, not all the students will have to pack a lunch. Many students maybe just grab it from the school. They don't have to worry about this, but, things like that. So we will continue this conversation later. So other things to think about to help with, addressing those barriers, how we may be having students to as classroom learning for them maybe to work together in pairs, groups. Perhaps that you have some materials for them. Think about you want them to have paper, drawing, or like highlighter. That's my favorite thing in general for any kind of learning. Online, perhaps there's online ways to pour their pour their opinions, pour their intermediate like products, right? To have that discussion together as a class. And maybe also building some independent thinking before they go to groups, so they actually are able to think and then really design their own solution before the groups. Right? So those are things that can be take consideration when you design your instruction. We are going to unpack this with the 5E model, since we're going to focus on not only just assessment, but also how do we align our instruction to prepare students for this kind of complicated performance test. So we're going to walk you through as how 5E lesson can guide students and like break it down, right, for different kinds of activities that will engage them for a different level of thinking. And so the first is engage with about 10 to 20 minutes. And this is a very interesting video. I'm not going to play the whole thing. It's like about 5 minutes. I will drag quickly show you so you can have some ideas. So especially later on.
And all you need are a few materials that
So it's ice for water.
Okay.
Put his hand.
Make sure you guys really this water.
And then of course he can only put it in a few seconds and then has to pull it out because it's too cold, right? But then he pretend himself to be a polar bear, which
there.
so not
Polar
bad.
bears live their lives in ice cold water. You know why they don't fat? So their inside of fat.
So he put this fat is shorting into the bag and put his hand inside it.
Don't touch it. Grab it from the out 3. Now check this out. So it was a Ziploc bag with fat coming through my finger.
Now he put both hands. One is just bare hand, the other one with the bag with the fat. Now he can compare the time he can put it in. Obviously, I know it's very obviously one without anything is very quickly he has to put it out, but the other one he can put it forever, as he says. Right, so this is very interesting. Will draw students' attention, and then maybe some activity of having them to think about what do they notice, what do they wonder. And then on the right, there's some questions also for them to think about the temperature of thermal energy by some hopefully everyday experience everybody has. So if they put warm water into a cup and they put it into microwave and they put it outside for 30 minutes, what changes occurs to the temperature for the waters by this process, right? So this makes the text to be a little bit smaller for comparing to the complicated design of the performance text. And then the second is explore. So for these stage, the student will be explore the concepts and think about this concept more. So we have some example student answers, and it's good to pay attention to rubrics that how these are being graded. And so these questions is ask a student to share with their friend what is thermal energy and how it is transferred between two objects. And so you can compare. The bottom one is 1 because it did not really say how the thermal energy transferred between two objects. But the one with higher score is not only describes an energy, but also describe how, which is, because of the heat are different, moving between two objects. So these are a better score because of with the both aspect has been explained. All right, next one. So after they understand the concept, and they will have to also identify whether you need to maximize or minimize the thermal energy transfer to keep a popsicle frozen. Right, so that's the next step, close to the tasks, and explain how the energy will be transferred. And so now also with some comparison, the better answer is not only identified, they have to minimize the energy, but also they have to describe to explain the idea, like support that choice. And so the one that on the top, draw a little model. It's not complicated, but it's like a good model to explain how something can block the heat, right? Material perhaps that keep the popsicle frozen, right? So with some very detailed explanation also to support that plan. So that is for explore. And then if there's more time, we can also have some materials that maybe you can have students to bring these materials from home, right? You can divide them up and having them to bring some materials or, teachers can prepare those materials because maybe, there's not everybody knows every material. So maybe there's some time that needed to be having them to look at these materials and think about how they use in life so that students can better understanding those background knowledge. And student will be needed to pick at least 2 materials from this list, and they will have to explain why they choose it and also describe idea to support that each of the choice. And so if students have used those before and they know what they are being used in life, hopefully they can make these connections, right? And then explain that how certain material can actually stop or at least slow the transfer of the energy. And so after exploration, and they will move to explain, which they have to go deeper with the concept and be able to unpack deeply on those reasonings, right? So this is, now we move to the explain. We will have the student to first draw the lunchbox designed. And then after that, they have to, this next question will be not only draw, but also they can explain what happened in the model. Right? So this is more move to the models. Here are some examples. And if they have a good response that not only draw, but also they are good at labeling of what's going on in the model. And we do have one example later on to share from student sample. And then with the modeling, and then they will have to also explain how the design works and why they think it will work. Right? So these will go to more in-depth explanation and understanding how the thermal energy actually transferred. So this is some example response, and I'm gonna give you a little bit more time to read. For the left, let's see the left first, right? So it's a very nice model. The student actually used 3 different kinds of materials, which is, I don't know if I can, it's not saying that in a task of how many types of materials you can use. At least student has been very thoughtful with 3 different type of materials and with different color coding. And the popsicle is in the middle, and it's wrapped by the cork and styrofoam and then bubble wrap. Right, so it's a very nice drawing to show how this model can protect or delay the melting process of the frozen popsicle. And then the reasoning, so it's a lot of text here. So the reasoning, you can focus on this one with underlined. And so that they have to identify whether the design will maximize or minimize the thermal energy transfer, which is minimize, right? Then they talk about why, right? So discuss the different type of materials. Perhaps some have more air, some will stop the molecule movement from the low to the hot to the cold molecules. And they also these students also think about the cooler, because the cooler is also made with styrofoam. So that is nice connection, right, from life experience with this question. So the last question is evaluate, and then we have the student to explain how you test it, right? So once you be able to explain, you design a model, you explain it, and then now you have to test your design. So the requirement is that they will have to answer how would you test it, and what procedures or instrumentations will you use, and how would you measure them. So it's a higher requirement, not only explain, but also be able to design and test. And so here are two of the sample questions you can compare. On the top right, the students are just having some very simple words to describe the testing process. They're not very complete, right, in a way. And for the left one, the student do have a lot of thoughtful designs, thinking about they will have to put the lunchbox outside. It's a normal school day, and we have to use a thermometer to measure the temperature. And then, the last is that how they will know if the test is successful, the design is successful or not. If the popsicle had melted, then they failed experiment. However, after 5 hours, it's still frozen, then it's successful. Right? So it's a very nice answer that, including the measurement process and then how to test their hypothesis. So hopefully this example will provide some ideas for you to think about how we are going to use the 5E model to guide students for performance tests, right? They're very complicated tests, but if you break it down by different process and then start splitting with different questions with different level of thinking, and having them to have a lot of discussions, hopefully that will help them to get there to this very high order complicated process. Do we have a question on that?
Nope, we're good. Keep going.
Okay, so yeah.
Lee, I don't want to just interject one thing. I mean, one of the things that's different about this than just a regular lesson is that you've got this rubric for the scoring, and I think it's very powerful to share that with the students after, of course, they've done the assessment, and to see how the scoring works. And it doesn't even have to be about you. You can still be the good guy and say, oh, it's the rubric that's scoring you low. But this gives them a sense of what it is that they need to do on the cast and what it is that the scorers are looking for. And so getting familiar with the types of things that are going to get scored high on the test is really going to sort of help them get prepared. And of course, all the things that Lee just mentioned, the vocabulary and the discussion skills.
Yeah, to add on that, I feel, it would be really nice to have students evaluate each other's answers and score them based on rubrics, that they look at, other, by group, perhaps you can do having them to look at their response and then give them a score and explain why, right? So that way they will have a better understanding of how to answer those questions based on the rubrics.
May I throw something else in?
Please.
Sure.
You will have access to these slides as well. You could put those samples up, give the students the rubrics, and have them score them. It's a really good way to familiarize the students with the rubrics and with the language without having them go through all of the steps of the process.
Right.
That's true. Yeah, if you've already covered this in your year, and you're not going to cover this again, maybe you just want to go over it like that, Sarah said. Yeah.
All right. So if you want to share any of your thoughts, please type in the chat. We definitely want to hear your perspective. How my using performance text formatively in the classroom can help build all these skills or anything else you're thinking of.
I have a thought about the student agency. I feel like the storyline of making a lunchbox is very relevant, meaningful, engaging, but it also makes the connections between all the concepts and the application very clear. So I think when students see a performance task in the classroom and then a performance task on a test, their affective filter is going to be much calmer. Like they're just going to be like, ooh, I like doing things like this because I did it in my classroom.
Mm-hmm.
So very positive association, maybe some confidence is also there.
Absolutely. Yeah, great point, Michael.
Yeah, definitely great point. I feel I can imagine that my daughter, after, she has done that assessment, and she will come back to design that because she loved popsicle, like maybe try it on herself and then, go back to this test again. It is really more meaningful connections with what you learn, right? In your everyday life with, science. I think this is the all the parents want and all educators want that your student having meaningful connections with what they learned in a school, in a class, and then in life. That all a good way of learning.
When I first saw this assessment, I had the same reaction that some of you did, that, okay, the reading's going to be kind of a challenge here. How come they didn't put any pictures of popsicles on it? Why don't they try to make it easier for the students? But it's actually maybe a little better if it's a little bit harder on this than it would be on the cast, especially if we could do this in groups and they can help each other out. It's a little more meaningful experience that has that challenge associated with it.
All right, we're gonna move on. I believe this one goes to Steven.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm going to drop a link in the chat, and you may be asking yourself, is this going to be meaningful to my kids? A lunchbox task. My kids, they don't eat lunch. How do I find some different task that my kids will find meaningful connection with? And how do I find performance tests that have already been developed, vetted by teachers like me, tests that are designed to allow students to just demonstrate knowledge in a more applied real world context? And so I've dropped a link to a bank in the chat, and you'll hear about a few other banks. And you may have heard of an upcoming bank sponsored by LACOE, Los Angeles County Office of Education, which this bank is hosted by, called Atlas. That's not released yet, so I won't talk about that. But I encourage you to take a moment to click into the various task banks that'll be gone over, including this one, and find some of the resources and see what might work for your kids. Of course, every kid eats lunch. There are different types of performance tasks. Tasks in this particular bank, this LACOE task bank, they're designed for the most part to be standalone tasks, thus the visual of the standalone task circled here. They're tasked with multiple possible performance outcomes, allowing some student decision-making, a limited range of answers with a span of 1 or 2 class periods. And they're designed to be open-ended, require students engage in higher-order thinking skills, and provide you insight into the student's problem-solving abilities. So before accessing, and in the next slide, you can see that before accessing the LACOE Task Bank, you're going to be required to sign a user agreement. And that's to ensure that you're understanding the terms of usage, how the task will be used in the classroom setting. And it's just essentially asking you not to repost into a teachers pay teachers or something like that. So that grants you access to the full bank of tasks. They're intended for formative use in an educational setting with students. They're not intended for high stakes use. So the LACOE Task Bank is organized into folders. So it essentially looks like once you get in a series of Google Docs folders, each contains a range of tasks categorized by grade level and subject area. Image on that left of the screen here shows an example of how those tasks are organized into those folders. The main folder containing subfolders for each subject and grade level, And inside those, you'll find specific tasks. And on the right is a sample task item from the bank, one of the high school performance tasks. Any questions?
All right.
All right, I'll hand it back.
I'm
Since you
gonna
mentioned Atlas, do we have to flash them with the Men in Black memory eraser since it's top secret?
It is not top secret. It has been
Up here.
presented several times at the very public California State Board of Education meeting.
All right. So you will have lots of resources following Stipend by Brian. So I stopped sharing and Brian is gonna start sharing because he might
Okay.
show the websites that you will be interested in. Have fun.
Absolutely. Does that look okay?
We're seeing your Zoom
Oh, no, that's not what I want to share.
share again.
This one. How about that?
Yep, perfect.
Okay, much better. What's the time check here? When did we want to open
We have
for
a little
questions?
less than 15 minutes to go.
Okay, sounds good. All right, so maybe you're thinking, yeah, that the popsicle lesson's great, but I don't teach sixth grade. I need to find something that's going to match for my students, and you're in luck. We have lots of examples, including the ones that Stephen just showed us at the LACOE Test Bank. But even beyond that, there's other resources as well. So one of the really good ones is the SNAP. That's the Stanford. I forget what the acronym is. But SNAP is the NGSS assessment project. That's what it is. Okay. So what they have is a bunch of vetted assessments in different formats. So they have short response items, short performance assessments, and instructionally embedded assessments, which are just a little bit longer performance assessments. And you can get onto the SNAP website and check out all their good stuff here. I'll just give you a quick intro here. So this is the SNAP webpage. Since we're talking performance assessments today, let's take a look at one of those. So you can see they've got organized by grade level. So they've got a lot of elementary school ones. And then we've got earth science for middle school, physical science, life science, a couple of different life science ones. And there's usually a, sort of a cover page, and then with it talks about, performance expectations and standards, and then you can get the actual assessment, which is often in the form of sort of a worksheet like this. And like I said, these have all been vetted and tested by lots of people, so they're often very useful to use with your students if it's something that fits in with your lessons. And then in addition to that, some of you may be familiar with Inner Orbit. This is a company that is sort of dedicated to NGSS assessment. And so they have built a lot of tools to help out teachers and schools. So you can go to innerorbit.com. And once you sign up, it takes a minute or so. So just to jump ahead, you'll see they've got a whole library of assessments, and they did a really nice job of organizing things by cross-cutting concepts, by SEPs, by DCIs, and so you can search for different things. So for example, okay, so if I search for thermodynamics, we already covered some thermodynamic stuff. Now you'll see a lot of these have a lock on it because they are a company. They do want you to subscribe. So a few of their things are available for free, but a lot of them are behind a paywall. So you've got to be aware of that. I know, I think it's Heart District that has subscribed to Inner Orbit, but I could be wrong about that. All right, and in addition to that, here's an example. Oops, sorry. Here's an example of what the Inner Orbit assessments look like. So again, they're giving you a phenomenon and a number of questions. And one of the nice things about their webpage is they give you a whole variety of questions for that phenomenon, and you can pick and choose the ones that are right for your students. You can also edit them, of course, but who has time for that. So you can pick the ones that are really going to fit for your students and match the kinds of practice that they need. Okay. And then another great resource is the SANCO assessment repository, I guess. This is another collection of assessments that the Stanislaus County Office of Ed has put together. And when you go there, you'll see you can do drop downs to see what type of assessment you want, a performance task. You can pick it by performance expectation, or you can pick it by discipline, or if they have CCCs on here, you do author. They got a lot of the LACOE ones are on there as well. And so you can go in and find more assessments that are going to match what you're looking for your students. And so those are three really good resources. And if you don't find what you're looking for in them, there's the whole world of the internet out there that you can search from and probably find even more stuff. But those are three that are pretty familiar to us. And then another resource, of course, that we have now is the interim assessments. Has anybody tried the interim assessments? Sarah has. Thank you. So these are, they just came out a couple years ago, and what they are is ways for you to sort of give your students sort of an authentic CAST assessment and do it at the time of your choosing. And so we've got they have released a number of items for each grade level. You can sort of pick and choose what's going to be best for yours. Sarah, do you want to talk about your experience with this?
Sure. So we used it in a variety of ways, but one of the most impactful ways that we used the interim assessment was the science teachers at the middle school gave the interim. However, for the last question for the performance task, they had them write it on a piece of paper because it requires going into the system and hand scoring it. But in order to get results, you do have to go into the system and hand score it. So they wrote their answer on a piece of paper, and in the system they wrote, "Hi, Mrs. Nitzos." So I was able to go in and score over 375 students in about 15 minutes and just hit 2, 2, 2, 2, 2 and give everyone a score. And then we use the paper to really disaggregate the students' understanding and identify some misconceptions. From that information, because middle school is grouped by subject and elementary is grouped by grade, we were really able to figure out where we were failing our students. What pieces were they not understanding? Where were some misconceptions? We were better able to address those and really support them. One of the best uses is to go off grade level. If you're a middle school teacher, use a fifth grade one. If you're a fifth grade teacher, use a third grade one. Build that student's vocabulary, their understanding, their comfort level with something that's just a little off grade level they'll never know. And then you can level it back up. Yeah, build that confidence. Time check, we've got about 5 minutes.
All right, I think we're good. So if you want to get into the interim assessments, we've got the links on that. You want to go into the, I don't know how to say it.
You're going to go into the CAST EPIC webpage. There is a red padlock in the upper left-hand corner, right-hand corner, and that is because you must have a TOMS account. This is not something you can access unless you have been set up by your LEA coordinator at your site.
So is that a site coordinator? I don't know what the vocabulary for that is, but yeah, the TOMS account is what you need.
Correct.
Right. Cool. All right. Well, I think then we're ready to take some questions.
Brian, also, can you move to the next?
Oh, you want to see the server?
We have a few that just like announcement.
Yeah, we will definitely get to all of the questions. If you are interested in becoming a member of CASE, we would love to have you as part of the CASE team. We have a great conference coming up in Palm Springs. There is a flyer on the lower hand corner for membership. There are different levels of membership. If you're interested in this, that is there for you. One more, Brian.
How many people are we going to see at CASE this year?
Oh, is anyone going to CASE? Give us a thumbs up or raise your hand if you're attending CASE with us this year.
Good.
Oh,
All right,
Jessica,
very
can't
nice, very nice.
wait.
Great. You will see each other in person. Wonderful.
My session is called If You Give a Hawk a Mouse, Come Visit Me. Additionally, Stephen and myself host a variety of workshops about all sorts of topics related to assessment. They're all free of charge. They are all on Zoom. So please take a look at our catalog. If you want more science, we are hosting an in-person science workshop with our STEM science unit here at LACOE. It will be at the Covina District Office Field House, so way out in West Covina. And it will be an in-person workshop October 15th. If you're interested, get in. We're almost full, so we'd love to see you there. We're going to really be digging deep and unpacking information about CAST and instruction and NGSS, getting all into it. So we hope to see you there. All right, one more thing. If you have a friend that missed Cast Academy and they don't want to watch the videos, feel free to invite them to our Winter Cast Academy. We're going to do this whole thing again. We're going to hit repeat. So if somebody missed it, or if you missed one of the sessions and that video just wasn't doing it for you, come on back and we'll do it all again. All right, with that, I'm going to pause the recording so we can take